Greetings scholars, Wormwood here. Have you ever had trouble remembering a Chinese character? Or maybe you've wanted to know what that one Hanzi's origin is? Why do they look the way they do? While you were studying the blade, I spent more than a decade trying to find the answer to these questions. With that said, let's get started with today's character. Tian, sky, heaven. According to the earliest Chinese character dictionary, 说文解字, written in the Han Dynasty, 天,颠也,至高无上,从一大. Heaven, the summit, the highest of all, from one and great. This definition needs some clarification. The ancient Chinese believed that the sound of a word was associated with its meaning in a profound sense, and so, quite often, a word would be defined with a homophone, a near homophone, a rhyme word, etc. Thus, Tian, heaven, is defined as Tian, the crown of the head, or a summit. Furthermore, the author of 说文, Xu Shen, interpreted the character as one plus great, as in the number one greatest. The Chinese understanding being that nothing was vaster or greater than the sky itself. However, modern research have cast some doubt over this interpretation. Let's start from the beginning. Shang Dynasty oracle bone inscriptions from around the millennium BCE show a pictograph of a person seen from the front, arms outstretched, plus a horizontal line, sometimes two lines, and sometimes a square, all indicating the head. Bronze inscriptions, however, from both Shang and Zhou, 1,000 years BCE to a couple of hundred years BCE, are somewhat more detailed, the outline of a person more easily recognized, and the head is clearly defined. While I do admit it looks kind of like an alien, I don't consider this solid proof that Tian means sky because of ancient aliens. However, the horizontal line on the top returns at the end of the Zhou dynasty and carries over into the Qin and Han dynasties, where it became standard. We can compare this arrangement with Yuan, further discussed in a later video, which is composed of a person, this time seen in profile, plus the same horizontal mark, indicating the top of the head. Original meaning of Yuan is, unsurprisingly, head. Further, both Tian and Yuan show similar variations, where the horizontal line might be written as a large dot or a square, which, in my opinion, makes the comparison even stronger. In light of this, it seems pretty clear that Tian, in its original form, meant head as well. However, this could all be mere conjecture. Is Tian ever used to refer to the head in ancient texts? In one of the oracle bone inscriptions from the Shang dynasty, we find this line, 福吉正天, which can be analyzed as followed. 福, no, not. 吉, disease or sickness. 正, me or my, referring to the Shang king himself. And finally, Tian, head. In context, this is a question, asking whether or not the Shang king would suffer a disease of the head. Whether this meant headaches, epilepsy, or something else is hard to pin down. It would make little sense for the Shang king to ask whether or not his sky was going to fall ill or not. Further, in the I Ching, or the Book of Changes, under hexagram number 38, Kui, opposition, we read 其人天且异, and he himself is subjected to the shaving of his head and the cutting of his nose. Here, Tian and Yi both refer to ancient punishments, that of having one's head shaven as well as one's nose cut off respectively. While today we'd consider the latter a cruel and unusual punishment, and the former little more than a fashion statement, in ancient China having your hair cut or shaven was considered to be on the same level as bodily mutilation. Our last textual reference, the Shan Hai Jing, the classic of mountains and rivers, tell the myth of Xing Tian, a god who rebelled against the Yellow Emperor, had his head cut off, but kept fighting, turning his nipples into eyes and his navel into a mouth. While not as strong a link as the other two, we can still draw a parallel between Xing Tian's fate and his name. Xing means punishment, Tian means head, the god who was punished by having his head cut off. Simple as that. From these texts, I think we can conclude that at least very early on, Tian was indeed used to mean head. However, by the Zhou dynasty, using Tian to mean head had already become mostly obsolete, and instead we see the character used in words like Tian Ming, mandate of heaven, Tian Zi, son of heaven, and Tian Xia, all under heaven, which all appear during this period. So we can see that the character Tian's meaning shifted between the Shang and Zhou dynasties, first meaning head, then perhaps by analogy, that which is over the head, i.e. the sky. I personally find this explanation quite satisfactory. It supports the traditional connection between Tian, sky, and Tian, crown of the head, while also fitting very well with archaeological discoveries. However, recent reconstructions of Old Chinese, specifically by Baxter Segart, seems to indicate that Tian is, at least phonetically, unrelated to Tian. Now, assuming their reconstruction is correct, this doesn't mean that Tian didn't mean head originally. It could just mean that there was another word for head originally, unrelated to Tian, or that Tian was borrowed to mean sky, unrelated to how it was pronounced. While the character Tian saw a few variations during the Shang and Zhou dynasties, by the Qin and Han dynasties, its shape had pretty much settled into the one we see today, at least officially. Many variant glyphs can be found on historical monuments or in ancient books, most of which are only slight graphic variations, like the ones we see here. Others, however, go that extra mile into what the heck territory. In this version, we got Fo, Buddha, and Guo, country, which stands for the Sanskrit word Buddhakshetra, the Buddha field or pure land, i.e. heaven or paradise. Fo Guo was also an alternate name for India, which in classical Chinese was also called Tianzhu. The previous alternate glyph had very clear Buddhist overtones, so here's one for my Taoist homies. In this character, we got Qing, blue, azure, plus Qi. This blue Qi actually stands for pure Qi. In the Taoist creation myth, when the primordial Qi separated into yin and yang, the heavy and turbid yin sank downwards to form the earth, while the light and pure yang rose up to form the sky. This is a personal favorite of mine, which you sometimes see over temple gates and in other Taoist inscriptions. This one has a few variations of its own. The first one replaces Qing blue with Qing pure, as we can see here. The second one replaces Qi with its ancient alternate form, which we will talk more about in another video. Lastly, after the Japanese adopted the Chinese script, the cursive form of Tian would eventually become the hiragana letter Te. And here's a pro gamer move for you. If you want to quickly improve your Chinese calligraphy, just look up which Hanzi correspond to which hiragana letter and start using that letter in your calligraphy. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe for more content. And if you have any questions or requests for future videos, please leave a comment below. Until next time.